What's up guys, today I'll be showing you an early look at the pre-production version of Jet Blaster's Alpha LS version 2. This is an improvement upon the original Alpha LS, with parts now being made of Polycarb instead of ABS, as well as some problem areas from version 1 being changed or strengthened to survive spring loads up to 16 kg. Now, because this is a pre-production version that I have today, there's some things that'll be different in the final version. For instance, some of my clear Polycarb parts will be black Polycarb, and the trigger catch will not be Polycarb at all. It will actually be delrin like the Omega kit. The Alpha LS kit is a drop-in plastic internals kit for the Longshot and Exus 2 shells priced at $75 USD. Unlike other Longshot kits, this kit includes everything you need in the one package, other than the blaster shell to put it into, of course. In this video, I'm going to firstly go through each part and discuss any changes made, then I'll test the durability of the version 2 kit against a 16 kilo spring, and then I'll do a chrony test. Let's begin. First up, let's take a look at the dart gate. Nothing's really changed about this piece other than it's now Polycarb. Mine's clear, but yours will be black. This piece is what your barrel attaches to and the dart gets pushed into to fire. The barrel screws into the dart gate using a UNF 5/8/18 thread. I'd recommend applying some gas-rated Teflon tape, which usually comes in a yellow colour. Quick note, the barrel I received with my kit is not the same barrel that will ship in the final version. This is an original version 1 alpha barrel with a 12.7mm ID, while the actual barrel will be a 13mm internal diameter like the Omega kit. The trade-off is a little velocity loss with the 13mm barrel to gain some improved feeding reliability. Next up, let's take a look at the breech assembly. This will also be black in the final version. There's a spacer piece you need to slide on unless using the Omni kit with your Alpha. The breech pusher threads on, and again I'd recommend some thread tape. The pusher has had a couple of parts strengthened. The bolt hole for connecting to the bolt sled has been made thicker. This is a piece that I personally had break on me in the version 1 kit, so I'm glad they improved it. Secondly, the breech finger's been made thicker. Hopefully this improves feeding with forward shifted mags like Talon, but I'll test that later. Once assembled, there's 2 O-rings to install on the breech assembly. The rear piece needs the red O-ring and the pusher needs the small black O-ring. Apply a non-petroleum based lube to both O-rings. I'm using a food grade Inox MX6. Now for the bolt sled. The bolt sled is another piece that's been strengthened. With the version 1 kit, some people were reporting flexing of the sled, which led to an inability to catch on spring loads above 10 kg. Hopefully with the added support pieces and Polycarb material, it'll survive 16 kg. I will test that later. Also, you'll notice the loose fitting pin to hold the pusher is gone. It's been replaced with a much needed threaded bolt. Having to use sticky tape to hold the version 1 pin in was very tacky and I wasn't a fan of that. Okay, now let's look at the plunger rod. This is another piece that'll be black, not clear. The spring rest goes on first and has a nice groove where the spring will sit to help center it. It's still undecided at the time of this video which type of spring the Alpha LS will ship with. Jet are currently testing out a 12 kg and a 14 kg to see which one is incapable of damaging the blaster in the event of dry firing and other situations of careless handling. The idea is that someone who's inexperienced with Nerf blasters and accidentally dry fires it shouldn't be able to break their blaster. Today though, I'll be using a Turf Blaster Springs 16 kg because that's what the kit is rated to survive as a maximum and I want to test its durability. The attachment of the plunger head to the plunger rod's been made more secure with the addition of 4 prongs instead of a single centered screw post. The plunger rod's also been made longer in the new version to help with catching. As with other Jet kits, the plunger O-ring is a loose fitting speed seal. Apply lube to the O-ring and that's it for the plunger rod. As far as I'm aware, nothing's really changed with the catch or trigger besides materials. The trigger will be black while the catch will be made of delrin, same as Jet's Omega kit. In an Exus shell, the spring goes on the center post. In a Longshot shell, it goes on the edge post. I'm not a huge fan of plastic triggers because they do flex, making your trigger pull less of a hair trigger compared to a metal one. If I was going to upgrade one piece of this kit, it would probably be the metal trigger. Now let's look at the plunger tube. This will be clear polycarb, not aluminium like the one I have here. As you can see, it features a small hole in the side which helps to reduce vacuum loading. Vacuum loading is where a dart gets sucked against the pusher when you prime, and it can lead to jams and other bad things happening. The hole doesn't hinder performance at all because the plunger head doesn't go past it. The plunger rod pushes in from the threaded end, and it can be difficult to get the O-ring past the threads without it coming partially off. With a little perseverance you'll get it in there, but make sure the O-ring hasn't come off at all before you screw the spring rest in. The spring rest simply screws into the plunger tube and it should sit flush with the end. The breech assembly pushes into the other end, and again make sure the red O-ring doesn't come off partially as you push it in. I found that giving it a slight twist helps. With the barrel in place you can kinda see how it all functions. Now that we've assembled it all, it's time to actually put it in a blaster. I'll be putting mine in Jet's own shell, the Exus 2, but this kit is also compatible with Nerf longshot shells. The only part you need to do differently is placement of the catch spring. Something I should have done earlier during assembly is applied a generous amount of lube to the plunger tube itself. Applying to the O-rings themselves is not really enough, you want a generous amount of lube in there. With the plunger tube in place, you should loosen the spring rest as far as you can until it sits hard against the plastic shell outside of the plunger tube. Installing the trigger and catch are straightforward, but just remember that in an Exus shell, the catch spring goes on the center post. In a longshot shell, it goes on the edge post, and I think you actually use the other catch spring which Jet supplies, which is slightly longer. Let's get this shell back together and run some tests. First up, I'm going to see if the seal holds for over a minute. I'll play the clip sped up, but I'll include a timer from my editing software so you know it's not fake. The seal held nicely. Now let's prime it a bunch, remembering I have a 16 kilo spring in here, and we'll see if it catches every single time. It seems sturdy at 16 kilos, I didn't have any issues. Finally, I'm going to chrony test the version 2 alpha kit. Because mine shipped with a 12.7mm internal diameter barrel, and you guys will have a 13mm barrel, I've gone and swapped out the barrel mine came with to a 13mm Omega kit barrel, which is the same. Also, I've been told this is compatible with forward shifted mags like Worker Talon, so that's what I'll be using today. Let's begin. 234, 230, 223, 231, 235, 230, 238, 226, 229, and 231. That gives us a low of 223 and a max of 238, with an average of 230.7. Velocities seem a little low for 16 kilo spring, but I know modders will improve the velocities by adding longer barrels or tighter barrels such as brass. Consistency is good though, a variation of only 15 feet per second from the lowest shot to the highest. Now I'll do a rapid fire test with the Worker Talon, 10 shots fired as fast as I can with a 16 kilo spring. Feeding was very smooth and I haven't had a jam yet. So what do I think of the Alpha LS version 2? Well, at $75 USD it is cheaper than other longshot internals kits, considering you get everything you could possibly need in the one easy to drop in kit. We don't know yet which spring it'll come with, but between the 12 kg and 14 kg this kit should get you above 200 feet per second, which is on par with similar blasters like the Caliburn. With further modifications, you could take this to even higher velocities with aftermarket 16 kilo springs and longer brass barrels. What do you guys think of the Alpha LS version 2? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and as always, thanks for watching.